Hi, so joining us today is a tech leader who has got 15 years plus experience in service management, app development, and digital transformation. Now, he is part of a very elite group of people that have built an app that has been acquired by ServiceNow. So I just want to say a huge welcome to Elliot today. So, hi, Elliot,
Hi,
how are
yeah,
you?
great. Thanks for having me. A privilege to be here. Nice to be invited. It's taken a while to set up this, so we're finally here.
I know. But honestly, but for all the listeners out there, it's going to be so worth it. It's so worth it. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. And I think it'd be great just to kind of start at the beginning of your journey, really, with ServiceNow,
Hmm?
like how you first got into ServiceNow. What's been that path that's led you to where you are today?
Well, I don't know if the story is a typical one, but I had some experience of implementing IT service management systems, and then I joined a bank, and they had a system that was going end of life, and so that was my task then to find a replacement. I guess we were lucky there. The parent company was General Electric, and they were already back in. I mean, this is going back a long time. I mean, it feels like a couple of years, but when you reach our age, Farrah, as you know, a couple of years is
Yeah,
actually 15 or 20.
yeah,
So I guess it was like, I'm guessing it's probably 2011, which doesn't seem that long ago, but yeah, scary how long ago that
yeah.
is. So yeah, General Electric was the parent company, and they were already using ServiceNow. So like, even back then, when it was pretty fresh, and so yeah, we had a couple of months to implement it, the new system, and so we really didn't have a choice to go and start looking for other systems. So let's go with ServiceNow. I mean, that was the first time I'd heard of ServiceNow. So yeah, and it was an eye opener, a revelation, like a sort of moment of clarity, as alcoholics refer to it. That suddenly, oh wow, this is amazing. I can do stuff really quickly with this. So yeah, we successfully managed to implement the tool within about 3 months, and that's pretty unheard of, right? Or at least in 2011, that was definitely unheard of. So that was really exciting. So that was kind of got my bug, and then I guess at that point I decided I would put my career into a piece of software, which I'm not entirely sure is a great idea, but I just felt like ServiceNow was onto something then. So yeah, I guess the gamble paid off in some sense. So yeah, that's how I got introduced, and then yeah, I've been doing it ever since.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And you know what? I'm just so eager to hear like how you went from obviously your humble beginnings there, where you just fell in love with the product, to hearing about this app that you've built that has gone on to be acquired by ServiceNow. Because obviously a lot of people out there do build apps, and it's one of those things that it's a bit like when you set a company, not everybody gets to sell it, right? So can I just ask you what sparked the idea? And, I think it'd be really interesting to find that, the real basics of it. Like, what problem were you trying to solve that
Mhm.
made you kind of think, okay, this could be good?
Well, I mean, I haven't just built one app. So, I mean, there's several apps that I've built, right? So, and they do different things. I guess the most famous, and I use famous very loosely, is, I guess, the quality app that's, reached the headlines. It, got, announced on a press release. So that one's kind of big. But then also built another app called Health 360, which does sort of best practice monitoring. So, I mean, the original question was, okay, what are the problems we're trying to solve? Yeah, quality management is what the application does, specifically quality issue management. So this is focused at manufacturers who, produce products, and then customers or their dealers or their partners report issues with them, and then how to handle that. And that's a very complex process. And often we see in the press, the examples of when that process goes wrong. Um, and so it's very important and absolutely crucial for manufacturers to get right and to have, a good, process in place. And here's where ServiceNow is actually kind of almost perfectly designed to handle a process like this. In that, it does workflow effortlessly. I can't even speak English now. I've lived in Sweden too long. And so yeah, so that's how we came about building the app. But like I say, I built several apps. It just happens that this one got sold. They haven't bought the other ones yet, but
You're right.
never say
Not
never.
yet. Yeah, absolutely. What was it about this particular app that caught ServiceNow's attention, do
I
you
think
think?
it was, obviously they're very strong in ITSM, starting to be very strong in CSM. Manufacturing is an area they really want to grow. And at the moment their platform is quite light in terms of pure manufacturing capability. Yes, they have products that cover many different verticals, but specific manufacturing products, they haven't quite got what's it started efficiently with yet. So I think for them it was a clear win that they could save a massive amount of time. As we know, the platform is growing massively in every direction, and so that puts a stretch, I'm sure, on their development teams about how much they can actually achieve, right? So I guess for them, this was an area they knew they wanted to get into, but realized maybe it was a couple of years away, and so here was, a partner that had already basically done what they wanted to do, and so for them it was, I guess, kind of an easy purchase, if you can say it like that. It was kind of
Wow.
simple, like for them. The return on the investment would be very easily demonstrated, as we will see in the next couple of years, I'm sure.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And so taking an idea that you
Mm.
had and turning it into a fully functioning app, it's really no small feat. So what
Agreed.
was that?
It's
Yeah, what was that?
horrible.
It's horrible. I was going to say, what was that journey like for you?
It's such.
Yeah,
I guess you could compare it to like climbing a mountain, right? I mean, it sounds like a sort of a bit of a cliche analogy, but I guess there's a lot of similarities there, and particularly at the start when you're staring up at the top of the mountain and thinking, oh my God, how am I going to get? I mean, it's very daunting. I still hate it now, which is weird. Like the start of the app building process is for me the worst, right? Because
right,
you haven't got anywhere. That every decision you take at the beginning is so crucial to what happens to the app later on. So getting the design correct at the beginning is fundamental, right? And so
right.
and also I don't see enough of the app built to really visualize what the end product looks like. So that it's a very scary part of the process. And I guess in my mind, it goes through like sort of three stages. The first part, horrible, daunting, I hate it, and I'm really glad when it's over. And then you get into that middle section, which is like the flow, right, where you kind of know what you're building now, and now you start to the stories or the development tasks. They're coming really fast now because you go, oh yeah, we need to do this and this and this and this and fix that. And so that's kind of like the really exciting part. And then the last part is the very stressful part, which is, oh my God, we've so many things we haven't thought about, and we need to do that, and we need to test it more, and we need to do the documentation and the user guide, and we need to ensure it
Yeah.
can be certified, and it just all this last minute stuff that turns up in the app building process. So I don't know whether there's more stages out. There's probably a despair and a regret stage as well somewhere in the middle there. But that's essentially what the app
Yeah.
process is like. Yeah.
That's amazing. And for anybody that's got an idea and thinking, God, this will be a fantastic app, like if you could give some, like, you know, actual challenges that you face, just so it helps them make sure they
Yeah,
don't make the same mistakes.
I think
Yeah.
building store applications is quite different from building applications if you're in your own instance, or if let's just say you're a partner, you're building in a customer's instance. There's different requirements. I think it's more challenging, and often the example is that when you're building a store app, you're essentially building for every possible eventuality. You're going to have some customers that have some plugins and not others. Some are absolutely massive customers, some are tiny users of the platform. And so that adds its own sort of challenges. It's particularly if you want to do a certain thing and you're assuming that they have a certain, product or functionality in place, it just adds a lot of complexity to the app, as well as then the attention to detail.
Yeah.
Like I think maybe if you're developing an in-house app in your own company, maybe there's not quite the burden to finish things to such a high level of quality, right? And so within store apps, that's dramatically increased, and so that adds its own challenges, of course.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And at what point did you realize that, your app had real potential? Was there a moment you thought, right, this could be something big?
Um, yeah, obviously, right at the start, you have no idea. We built the app because we'd already been, as a partner, we were already in the manufacturing space. That was essentially our USP. So we've been building manufacturing apps for various different customers for a long, long time. So for us, it wasn't anything new. Doing something in the store was new for us. It was to say, well, look, we're a partner based in Scandinavia, and whilst it's a lovely place to live, it's also quite small, realistically, right? There aren't that many enterprise customers here. So building store apps was a way for us to get across the borders and get into other regions and make ourselves a bit more known about,
Yeah.
manufacturing. And so I've forgotten the question. See, this is the other problem with age, isn't it? You start waffling and you go, what did she even ask me?
No, 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 no. That's it. Was there a moment where you thought this
Oh,
could
right,
be
yeah, that
something
was it.
big?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's all right.
So at the start, no, we had the goal in plan was to increase sort of brand awareness, improve our USP, and hopefully build something that customers wanted, and
Yeah.
But then, we presented the idea in a manufacturing meeting in Chicago to the
Okay.
ServiceNow, and there we sat with a whole load of the other major partners. So that was a pleasure to be invited to
Wow.
that conference because we felt very out of place. And then I think maybe just over a year ago, we were invited to a conference in Munich, manufacturing as well, and there we presented the app to ServiceNow's, senior manufacturing people, whose
Yeah.
obviously job was there to say, okay, what have you built? Is it any good?
Yeah.
Do we want it? So I kind of feel like at that point there, we had impressed the ServiceNow people enough to say, yeah, we're actually really interested in this.
Yeah,
I kind of
that's really
knew at that
what was their feedback? Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were generally impressed, as customers were too. When we actually sort of start showing the first version to customers, I was surprised a bit. I mean, people talk about imposter syndrome, right? You never
Yeah.
believe like what you've done is any good, right? And people tell you what you've done is good, but you're just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
So I guess presenting it to customers, expecting like this barrage of, well, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that, and no, that's wrong, and that's not how we work, and why would you do it like that?
Yeah.
And actually finding the complete opposite, which is, wow, this is really cool. This is
Yeah.
great. This is what we want to do. And just getting such nice feedback from the customers, like, wow, this is amazing. What do you mean this is the first version? Be like,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So that was, I guess we knew at that point, oh, wow, we've built something really good at this point. And again, the fact that ServiceNow had such genuine interest to acquire it so
Yeah.
early on. I mean, let's be honest, it was early on in the process that they became interested, new. Or to me, it's like the ultimate validation, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing my colleagues or my peers telling me, hey, this is really cool, this app, but ServiceNow wanting to acquire it is kind of like the best it can get, right? Or at
Yeah,
least
it's
for
like the
me.
icing on the cake, isn't it?
Yeah, I
So,
think so.
y- yeah, definitely. And like obviously, like from a customer perspective, obviously they've been doing their roles they're experts in it. So, how did you learn their processes to make sure that the app flowed to what they
Like I say,
wanted?
we'd
Yeah.
already been working with manufacturing customers. We already had been supporting similar type of processes for a customer. So we kind of knew a little bit about the
Yeah.
process already. But, bottom line is a lot of research.
Yeah.
A lot
Okay.
of, this has been, and I often refer to my apps as my babies because they kind of, I know it sounds weird, but, there's so much time invested into them. You live and, breathe this app inside out for 6 to 8 months or 9 months, maybe it's a better
Yeah.
comparison. And so, yeah, there's a lot of time that goes into it, researching, understanding, learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. And is that was that a team effort or
Oh,
did you?
absolutely. I'm not going to sit here
Yeah.
and take all the credit. No, absolutely not. I mean, we
Yeah.
we were a small team, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's absolutely a team effort. And and what's nice is we had a really good team structure
Yeah.
where we have developers that have specific skills in certain areas.
Yeah.
And to use those. Like, for example, great part of this journey was learning UI Builder, right? Which I'm sure all the developers are, learning, getting, it's got its challenges. Let's be diplomatic,
Mm.
right? It's still a fairly new tech. And so we really wanted to be, using that new tech already. It wanted to, be straight out in the workspace. So it was a lot of, what's the word, uphill struggles at the beginning just to get the developer to understand UI Builder and how it
Yeah.
works, because it's very different to the classic interface. So that was definitely one of the struggles. In fact, I think we would have built the app a bit longer if we hadn't built it in If we hadn't built a workspace, we would have been probably finished 2 months earlier, to be honest
Oh,
with you.
okay.
Yeah, but that's but that's the nature of new tech, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
learn, you make mistakes, and you understand, and yeah, you keep trying until you get it to work eventually. So yeah, that's
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like it took up a lot of your time, as in it was full time that you were working on the app
mm,
at your, is that right?
yeah.
So when you were employed, was that, were you, was that your job role, or is this something that you've kind of gone to your management and said, "Hey, I'd love to build these apps." Like, how did it come into play? Like,
I mean, the first app, Health 360, that was kind of built in my free time. That was just an
okay,
idea that I had. I thought, oh, this would be actually. Oh, we can talk about that soon. And then quality, no, I mean, that was my job. I mean, I was responsible for the app dev team, and the task
right,
was to, right, let's go build an industry app, and off you go. Good luck. See you in 6 months.
yeah.
Hope you produce something good, kind of thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So your company supported you,
Yeah,
and
I'm very lucky in that respect. I work for a company that definitely encourages real innovation. Because like innovation is something, a word people talk about, but it's actually quite scary for a lot of companies, isn't it? Let's face it, what is innovation? Doing something you've never done before.
yeah,
Companies don't like that. They want predictive, linear type progress. So doing something
yeah,
crazy or, about to spend some money and maybe never see a return on it is a little bit
yeah,
scary for everybody. So
yeah.
that's why I think companies to some extent struggle quite a lot with innovation. But I'm very lucky to work for a company that says we trust you. So
That's
go
amazing.
do what you're good at. So that's nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And how did you get involved in, like, how did they ask you to do it? Was it because of the previous app that you
I
built?
think it was. Look,
Yeah.
Health 360 had been really successful, and the journey of that app is kind of interesting as well. And I think maybe we could talk about it because it's kind of interesting
Yeah,
to see how
please.
apps become a reality, right? So
Yeah.
Health 360 started as we had internal developers. We're a partner, right? And we used to have an internal developer forum where we would try to talk about what's going on in the ServiceNow world, what's new in the platform, best practices came up quite a lot. How to do certain things. Um, and I remember during one of those meetings thinking, well, this doesn't seem like a very good way to do this, in the sense that we would talk about best practices, and I'm sure they were fresh in the minds of people for 2 weeks, and then it's gone. You go back to status quo again and just do stuff how you've always done it. So I thought there
Yeah.
needs to be a
I think
better.
that's human nature,
Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
human nature, exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought there needs to be a better way, and that was when I got the idea. Well, originally the app was called Platform Health Check, and it started off with just a dashboard, with loads of reports of saying, look, I want to know what's going on. Like if this is happening in an instance, I just want to know about it. So very reactive. And then that kind of emerged or evolved into, well, actually, how do I take it to the next stage? Like, how do I make it more proactive, right? If I'm going to not only know of stuff that's happening, how can I, prevent that stuff happening in the first place? And that again became then what became Health 360. So this became, of course, then you're excited by the spark of the idea, right? So, once I go, oh, wow, this is actually a really good idea. But then I can't stop, right? Then I'm like, sort of, like can't sleep because I just need to finish this idea, right? So I invested a lot of time in it in my spare time. Right, let's go and build this now. And it's actually quite a good way to look at how I approach apps too, because yeah, often I start off with like, okay, well, what's the bare minimum? Like, often we talk about like reactive and proactive, like they're
Yeah.
very common terms, right? But I'm more interested in what happens after that, like the predictive and the prescriptive. How do we get to those parts? And that's often, I often start with an app already designing what the app's going to look like in 3, 4 years time. Like I want to know the end game. Like it's like well, many moons ago, I used to be a chef. I mean, we're talking, before the internet was invented, sort of thing. And there I used to design the plates. Like I wanted to know before I would come up with a recipe, I really wanted to know what it was going to look like on the plate when it was
Yeah.
finished. So I applied
Yeah.
kind of the same thinking to the apps, right? I really try and immerse myself in like, okay, what is it going to look like? What's the experience? So
Yeah.
again, I'm sure we've gone way off topic here.
No, 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 absolutely not. Because, I was thinking that as well. It's almost like you've got an artistic kind of
Yeah, you got to
creative
be careful
side.
what you say there. Artistic is a great way to pronounce
Artistic and creative kind of, flair, And do you think that's necessary for somebody to be successful?
Oh God, no, absolutely not. But I think it's been an advantage to me. I
Okay.
mean, originally I still kind of view myself as an artist, right? How did I get into technology? Who knows? This is so weird.
Right,
I'd just kind of
right.
love to go back in time and just tell, oh, by the way, you're going to work with like developing software, because I think my younger self would just find that so hilarious because,
Talk about your younger self. What did your
oh, I was
younger
going to be an
self?
artist.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I was going to be a famous artist. That is what I wanted to do. I just wanted to paint. And then I
Wow.
quickly
Wow.
realised that most famous artists, well, there aren't that many, and then also the majority of artists, they don't just paint; they do other jobs as well. And I went, oh,
Right.
that doesn't sound as
Yeah.
fun. So, so that's quick career shift at that point. So yeah, I mean, but again, you can't remove the artist out of the person. So I guess I still have that sort of creative need. But I think it's a real skill that I take to an advantage, right? Particularly when like the user experience, the user interface, the graphical
Yeah.
aspect of it. I really care about the design. And then that you couple that with like this absolute perfectionism is just I guess some people would say a winning combo. I think maybe it could also be a disadvantage too. But I take
Yeah.
immense pride in what I do, and I want it to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
annoys the hell out of my colleagues because they're like, "Oh my God, you're so pedantic."
Right.
But I don't care. I want to, just like my main driving factor. I want to be proud of what I've done. I
Yeah.
want it to be absolutely perfect. And
Yeah.
maybe it's something you can never achieve, but I want to try and get as close to it as possible.
Oh, that's amazing. Does that ever delay things
Oh
though?
God, yeah. I mean, like I say, it's not a good thing. Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know. I kind of feel like it's served me well so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of looking back at the journey that you've had, developing, any of the apps really, but maybe the one that was acquired by
Mhm.
ServiceNow, is there anything that you would have done differently, do you think? Maybe in the whole process
I don't.
or...
Do you know what? ServiceNow actually asked me that too, and
Oh,
I think that's a really
really?
good question. And actually, I've answered to you what I did to them, which is
Yeah.
nah, I don't think so. I mean, everyone's clever in hindsight, right? Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, maybe there's some minor things of like, oh, okay, yeah, I did it in that table. Maybe I should have structured the table slightly differently. Um, but no, I don't actually. I feel like the process has to take its course, and it's very easy to look back and. But actually, I don't. I don't look back on it
Yeah.
differently. Maybe keep the team smaller because
Right?
like bigger teams don't necessarily produce things faster. Um, so I think that's maybe the only thing I would do slightly
Yeah.
differently. But no, I don't think. No,
Yeah.
no, I don't think so.
I think maybe it's the perfectionist in you just made sure it was 100%.
No,
Yeah.
see now that's it. I knew that when I said that would come across completely
No,
wrong.
no, 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 not at all. So no, but it's great. But it is great, because I think it means that you are really proud of what
Hmm.
you've done, and yeah, and just to talk about proudness, obviously after selling the app,
Hmm.
how have things sort of changed
Well,
for
I'm a
you?
little bit
Like,
more
has
famous in the kind
yes,
again, and also my family is completely sick to death of hearing about it. That's the other news. But I've got to take my 15 minutes of fame, as Andy Warhol famously said, right? Because I
absolutely,
feel like it's probably past
absolutely,
already. But
yeah,
how has it changed? Well, let me we split that into two answers. How has it changed for me personally? Um, it's wonderful bragging rights. Yeah, I mean, I was about to have. I've worked with ServiceNow since Aspen, so next year in spring I will have done an entire alphabet of
wow,
releases, which is kind of like that was going to be my ultimate bragging right.
yeah,
And now this came
it's
along,
pretty
I feel like,
amazing.
oh wow, this is even better. So just from a personal thing, as a career milestone, it's a wonderful way. I mean, retirement, I'm still far off, unfortunately, but to end the career with these milestones is kind of
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. And
as far as the
yeah,
company goes, then it's really good, right? Because
yeah.
it's now put us on the map on that bigger map. Suddenly, people are aware of my company. I think the chairman of the company said, "Oh, just so you know, this is the most famous the company will ever be, or since
Oh,
its inception," which is kind of nice, right?
which is really
To
nice.
contribute
Yeah.
to that sort of brand awareness. So yeah, it's opened up loads of doors, loads of opportunities.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh, that's
really been a
really
game
good.
changer in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And when you said, oh, you got your 15 minutes, of fame in the service now space, like what has been happening? Like, wow, what is that 15-minute of fame? What does it look like for someone?
People talk to you and they're curious to know more and they want to know how it happens because it is a kind of a mysterious thing, right? You hear about this, ServiceNow acquire things in the background and they've been, especially the last year, has been acquiring a lot.
Yeah.
And the process took a much longer than we thought it was going to. And we found out later why. It was because they were busy acquiring MoveWorks. So, you know, when you're about to
Yeah.
spend 3 billion or whatever they spent, I guess that's not something you do quickly.
No, no,
So
no.
they were quite busy with that. So the process took a lot longer. But yeah, no, I guess people are very interested to see how it happened and curious
Yeah.
as to how it
That's
goes about.
that's really great. And are you working on anything exciting at the moment?
Well, yeah, but I can't tell you, can I? I mean,
Oh,
that's the problem. I know it sounds so obvious, isn't it? Yeah, I'm working on lots of it. I don't know whether they're going to be as big as quality. That was a really
okay.
big application. I think the next couple of apps you'll probably see in the store later this year or next year. Some of them are a bit more point solutions, but some of them are. I'm very excited about one that's almost finished. I think that maybe should be out in June. I can't tell you what it's about, unfortunately, because probably
Okay.
someone will steal my idea and try and build something, what people are like. So,
Yeah,
but
no,
yeah,
that's
some really
fine.
exciting
We'll look out
apps.
for it.
And also, do you know
Yeah.
what? Building the health app has been really useful for that kind of thing, right? Because the health app scans your instance and and monitors for best practices and prevents technical debt. So it's been really useful, like in building other applications, like where we can have the health app scanning the new app continuously. So that's a huge advantage. That speeds up the app process massively because we know all the development work is being checked. Is it, are we using the right coding techniques and have we done stupid things in the app and all that kind of thing. So it's been really. I mean, the health app. I mean, I know the quality app is all in the focus, right? That's the one that got acquired. But the health app has been really a game changer in so many ways. In just training new employees have been incredible. Maybe we can talk more about that too, because
Yeah,
that's kind of an
please.
interesting area. Like, how do you gather skills and how do you build experience? And having an app like Health 360 has been amazing in that, in the sense that because it's monitoring for best practice, if you're responsible or helping to build that application, you of course naturally learn best practice while you're doing it. And so that's, if you take someone who's fairly new to the platform, you know that having spent 6 months, a year working on the application, they come out the other side, not only a pretty capable developer, but also have got best practices like tattooed on their forehead,
Yeah.
essentially, and they wouldn't dare do anything different. And so that means that they go out into the world really, really competent developers. So that's been
Yeah.
quite amazing.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really good. And like success, I know it doesn't happen by accident. Maybe it might do for the, 0.011% of of the population, but I think, obviously you have to have the right mindset. You need to have the right approach. Can you talk us through your mindset and how you keep going? And because it all looks very glamorous from the outside,
I don't know
but I'm
about
sure
glamorous.
behind the scene it's, a lot of like, there's a lot of
Well, success is a
tears
weird one,
goes
isn't
with
it?
it.
I think success is
Yeah,
very subjective, right? What's one person's success is not someone else's. And also, I think
right.
there's quite a lot of bit of luck involved to some degree,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um, but what's my mindset? I guess back to that sort of pride thing, just really caring about what I do,
yeah,
and being constantly inspired with new
yeah.
ideas. Because that's another thing. People see the app that's sold, but they don't see all the other apps that I built that just fizzled away and became nothing. And
Mm,
again, that's another almost like part of innovation that people forget. It's all the stuff that becomes, the failures, right? They're almost as important as the successes. I've probably got built about 20 applications, and maybe only a couple of them have been truly successful. I'm okay with that. In fact, I quite happily teach, the new developers that come on board that the failure is something completely okay,
yeah,
and it's part of innovation. And so not to be afraid to mess things up because that's how we learn, right? And it sounds so
yeah,
incredibly cliched, but there's so much truth in it. And I think maybe we tend to be afraid of failure. I kind of I almost said encourage it. That sounds terrible, but
that's good. Yeah,
but to me it's a fundamental part, right? And I think
yeah,
people sometimes forget that the apps that failed are just as important as the ones that succeed, because the ones that
yeah.
succeed are because of the ones that failed.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And you know, like it must help you build that resilience, right? So that it's like never give up. It's like, okay, that one didn't work, fine. You know, I'm not gonna like
I
now
think it's also
forever.
the creative brain, right? You're always like on to the next idea, always want to, do, okay, what's next, get
Yeah,
inspired by something. So apps are kind of great for that. They're great for my mindset, at least, that, it's a
yeah,
little bit, gets really heavily into something and then, okay, I'm done with that. I want to close the door. I want to go on to something else. So app
yeah.
building really suits my personality in that sense.
That's amazing. And talking about being inspired, like how do you get your inspirations? Like, are there
Well, yeah,
any?
and that's the other thing, right? It
Yeah,
doesn't never happens 9 to 5, does it? Right?
right.
It's not like your ideas appear while you're in the office.
Yeah,
That's not life. In fact, my best ideas happen in supermarkets or on a train, and so I'm always
yeah,
taking notes. I've even been
yes,
known to wake up with an idea and write it down and then go back to sleep. Because so yeah, ideas are happening. So I constantly writing down ideas because yeah, like I say, they appear anytime, anywhere.
yeah,
And I don't know. I think it's kind of a hard question to answer because it's just maybe the way I look at things slightly different to maybe other people look at things.
yeah,
Um, I just have, again, it could be that creative brain that I see things slightly differently. Or,
yeah,
I'm also quite a curious person. Like when I was a child, I loved to take stuff apart, but then could never put it back together again. That was not the important part. The important part was to take the machine apart, understand how it worked, and then move on to the next thing to destroy. To my parents, furiousness in the sense that you would get some toy, they would put a lot of money into it, and I would destroy it. So that curiosity hasn't left me, right? What if? Like, I love that question, but what if we did
yeah,
this? And
yeah,
again, it's back to that sort of reactive, proactive, predictive, prescriptive. Like, what's the next logical stage all the time? So I'm always asking that.
yeah,
Okay, fine, we can create quality issues and we can automate that process, but what's next? How do we predict quality issues? Right, how do we do that? And I'm curious, okay, well, where's the data coming from? How would we know we've predicted it? So I think that's kind of how I view things a lot. So that when I'm coming up with ideas, it's also challenge. And also, do you know another one? This is going to sound weird too. Laziness, right? And what I mean is like, why would I want to do something that's really boring? So that often is a really inspiration. If I get given a task and it's something that I find incredibly boring, I'm going to find a way not to do it. I'm going to automate it somehow. I'm going to build an app to, so again, and that could be something in ServiceNow, right? It could be something as I don't want to click that button 4 times or, click
yeah.
5 times to get to this thing to happen. I want to do it once, so that kind of also has a big inspiration, how to avoid doing boring stuff,
Yeah, I like that.
because who
I
wants
like
to
that.
do that, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like you're always trying to think of solutions to problem. Like it's they're all around you, and you're like, right, okay. It's like I've got family members who very similar childhoods. Would pull things apart, and they've turned out gone on to be the best engineers.
But
So
also, what's so funny about like when the quality app was sold and everyone, is that one of the most common question I got asked was, "When's the next app coming?"
right.
Like
Yeah,
when
I
you,
think I asked you earlier, didn't I?
it's a
Like,
bit like
what anything exciting you're working on?
it's a bit like asking David Bowie, okay, when's the next, top 20 hit coming out? It's like, yeah, what, you
Yeah,
think I write one of those every day or something?
yeah.
It's kind
When's
of,
the next album
yeah,
out?
it's like, you have no idea the effort that went into this thing. And it's so funny, isn't it? Like, you build this castle and then people just go, yeah, when's the next castle? And you're like,
Yeah.
can I just have a little bit of a pause first?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like when you're a pop star, isn't it? You've sold like this like
Yeah.
platinum selling album and
Oh,
it's like, right, okay, we need the next one and it's got to be bigger and better.
right,
Do
exactly.
do you feel pressure though? Do you feel
Yes.
the
Yeah,
pressure? Do
definitely.
you?
I think there is a pressure too. I mean, particularly when something like this has happened. Like, how do you top it? How do you?
Mm,
So yeah, there is definitely a pressure to come up with like the next best thing, and that's getting harder and harder because obviously
yeah.
ServiceNow are getting wider and deeper in the platform. They're doing more and more. So there's always a risk that you're going to build an app and they're going to say, "Hey, we finished ours," and you're like, "Oh, that was a waste of 6 months then." So
Right.
there's
Yeah.
it's more dangerous today, I would say, embarking on an application unless the user case is very unique and very specific. So
Yeah.
or like the vertical based user cases are definitely, I would say, less risk because there are areas where ServiceNow don't have coverage. But yeah, there's always that element that you might be wasting your time a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, just talking about time wasting, like, no, 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 but my question is like, say if somebody else is building the exact same thing, but how do you, like, is there a way of finding out so you don't waste your time? Like, is there a way to
Well,
kind
yeah,
of
look, I
like,
think we keep ServiceNow very close, right? So we're very open to the
yeah,
apps that we're building so that
right,
they can be honest with us and say, hey, we're
okay,
actually working on. So, I mean, for example, with quality, we approached them and said this idea, and they said, well, yeah, look, we've got a few PowerPoints, but we haven't actually built anything. We kind of plan to do, have a quality issue type in the manufacturing commercial operations product, but as far as
yeah.
that, we haven't got any further.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's
So
kind of,
you kind of
yeah.
gave you the
But
green
that's
light.
that's
So yeah,
ServiceNow in terms of like competitors and other partners, of course. No, you've
yeah,
no idea what they're up to. But
right,
other than,
okay,
I've been in the community for a while, so people talk and,
yeah.
you have your spies.
I got you. No, yeah, absolutely. That's good. So, and if anybody is getting really inspired by this conversation and is thinking, God, I've got so many great ideas. I'd love to like work with Elliot, like, and they're not getting the support where they are there, can they join? Like, I'm not asking, are you hiring? But I'm just saying, like,
You
can,
basically are.
we'll talk about this off topic. No, I'm really joking. No, no, no. But as in, like, can they reach out to you? Like,
Sure.
maybe, yeah,
Yeah,
like,
definitely. I think so. I think we're kind of open to that. I mean, we have a very well-established trainee program, and that's one end of the spectrum that's very interesting. But the
yeah,
other area is also very interesting. The more senior, the ones that have built up wisdom, the ones that have done lots of mistakes over 10 years,
yeah,
they're a bit harder to find.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
we're definitely
Oh,
open to that. I mean,
no, that,
we're going to be building, like I say, I've got 3 or 4 apps in the pipeline, and that's
okay.
just this year.
Yeah, wow.
So yeah, of course we need more resources. That would be fun.
Yeah, yeah. And is that your role now going forwards, just focusing on the app
Yeah,
side of things?
yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So we split basically the business unit into professional services, managed services, and then application development. So yeah,
right.
yeah, that wing or whatever you call it, that pillar
Yeah.
is mine. So
Oh, that's amazing. So, yeah, brilliant. So, look, my final question today is just imagine you hop in a time machine, go back to when you're 21.
yeah,
What advice would you give that young Elliot who's starting out in life?
probably buy ServiceNow shares would be a good piece of financial
Yep,
advice to do at that point.
I
What
would not
advice?
deny that.
What advice?
Yeah,
Yeah, buy Nvidia shares while you can.
yeah,
Um, no, what financial? I don't. Yeah, what's the word? Be more proud of what you've done. Like, not maybe, take on the criticism and think that, be more confident of what you've actually done and understand it. And be brave. I mean, I took a couple of brave decisions in my life. One of them was like moving to Sweden. That's kind of
yeah,
crazy thing to do, but that paid off. And then, getting into IT also paid off. I mean, I actually remember my dad telling me, he didn't say very much stuff that was of use whatsoever, but I do remember one thing he said to me, which was, when you're older, either languages or IT is going to be really important. So choose one of them. I mean,
really.
I chose languages. I'm an
Wow.
idiot, but
That's why you moved to Sweden, wasn't it?
right. So I guess he was kind of right about that. But yeah, so I guess
Wow, that's
I would,
really
all right,
like
but then in answer to your question,
foresight. Yeah.
what would I do? I go back to myself and say, don't choose languages, choose IT.
Yeah. No, but obviously these come in handy. But yeah, that's amazing for your dad to have that hindsight and go, because obviously, it has landed you on your feet. So no, but I think, I think the message is so loud and clear for anyone that's thinking of this as a career path is that you've got to be invested and you've got to love it, which
Yeah, and you've got
obviously
to, I think
you've had
one
got
thing we
both.
haven't talked about is I think just if you are starting out, it's just that how important it is to build stuff.
Yeah.
Like, because often, how do you learn the platform when it's so deep and so wide and there's so many, there's nothing better than just simply building, taking an idea
Yeah.
and just trying to, create it. It's a great way to learn. And definitely, I would say that's a great piece of advice to people is to stop going on, the Now University or whatever it's now called. I mean, don't go there, obviously, that's important, but don't forget, building is way more important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's practical. So, look, this is incredible. Look, Elliot, I just want to say huge, huge thank you. It's been a total honor of mine
Wow.
to be able to spend time with you. Yeah, you're, come on, you're famous, you know. So, but yeah, thank you so much. And if anybody does want any advice from Elliot, you know, regarding app building, you can reach him out on LinkedIn.
Sure.
So, yeah, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Elliot, for coming on today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.